Troy is my home now.
You have my oath, brother.
Hello and welcome to Rock Paper Shotgun. My name is Colin Ahern, and like you, dear viewer, I'm keen to know more about Creative Assembly's upcoming strategy game, A Total War Saga Troy. Nate Crowley from Rock Paper Shotgun, the website, recently had the chance to play a big old chunk of the game, so we decided to invite him back onto the channel, because what better brain to pick on all things Troy than Mr. Crowley's? So Nate, I've always been under the impression that the Saga games were much smaller in scale than the mainline Total War games. Is that the case with this one?
No, from what I've played, and mind you that was 40 turns apiece with two of the factions in the game, the war seems pretty total. The map, in fact, covers sort of from somewhere to the left of Greece to, I don't know, somewhere in the middle of Turkey, I think. I didn't get to go all over it. I was too focused on the exciting business off the east coast of Greece. But it's massive. I talked to the developers. They told me it's a bigger map than Rome 2's, for example. And apparently, I was surprised by this. It's as big as the massive Mortal Empires map in Total Warhammer 2. That is a honking great. That's like two maps stitched together into an unholy Frankenstein. Somewhere a good way north of 250 territories, and that's a lot of Mediterranean.
So I gather it follows the story of Troy and the Iliad and all that, but are you confined to that story or can you branch off? How does the story work?
So I think one of the things people really like about Total War games is they're a sort of sandbox. It gives you a bit of history. You know, you can either try and recreate things that actually happened in history, or you can make your own weird parallel history. So the Trojan War is going to happen quite early on in the game. You've got two big sides, who are the Danaans, or Danaans, basically the Greeks, and then the Trojans and their allies. So of the 8 factions you can play, 4 are Danaans, 4 are Trojans, and yeah, like I say, they get into the hammer and tongs pretty early in the game. There's a lot of events that will happen in the Iliad. It roughly follows that story. Maya, who's one of the developer leads at CA Sophia, said it's a bit like a river, the story of the Iliad in this game, in that you can flow along with it and that goes fine, but if you want a bit of a challenge, you can swim against it and go rogue.
Oh.
Yeah, if you want to be a third faction in the Trojan War and just wee on everyone's chips, you can.
And wage war on the perfidious Trojan princeling.
On the topic of story and the Iliad, does this game have all of the ancient Greek personalities that people would expect?
Yeah, it's very, 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 well, I was going to say true to history, but, you know, given that the history is just what one maniac called Homer decided to chat about around a campfire one time, I use the definition loosely. But, you know, it cleaves really closely to Homer and also what we do know about the period he was writing about. You know, there's all sorts of references to the Iliad and their little quotes scattered around, and you got all your favourites. You got Odysseus, the unfortunate mariner. You've obviously got Achilles, the angry man, Menelaus, the other really angry man. I think there's another angry guy on the Greek team as well.
Somewhere there has to be.
The Trojans, you've got Hector, Paris, of course. But you don't expect to be able to play an entire hit parade of classic mythological Greek lords, because it is very specifically stuff from that story. And actually, talking about Homer, he's actually in the game. He's there as your advisor.
Oh.
Yeah, he's a little face that shows up in the corner and says, like, "No, if you're going to build ships, you need to cut down some trees, my lord." But I mean, sometimes it gets a bit much when the tutorials tips that you don't really need stack up so hard that Homer's continually interrupting himself like he's incredibly surprised. But on the whole, it's a really well-delivered flow of information. I think if you were new to the series, it would be really, really good. Even the visuals, it hasn't gone with like all of the kind of hackneyed marble columns and stuff you always expect from ancient Greece.
So they've taken a unique approach on the visuals. What about the different factions? Do they play differently to one another?
Yeah. So first I had to go with Menelaus, who... It's weird, actually. I think he's the Spartan king, but I think they've tried as hard as possible not to make him look like Jared Butler off of 300. So he's still an angry, shouting beardman, but he's got weird sort of Brendan Gleeson energy. He's like ginger and a little bit heavy set. He's cool. But his special thing is that because he's like the ringleader who's organising this massive fight after school, he can sort of phone up other kids and order them to bring spanners to school the next day to fight with. And in game terms, this means that you can, when you're running an army as Menelaus, you can hire the unit types belonging to other factions. So if one of your Greek allies has got some cool club lads, you can recruit them for your army. They cost a bit more and they take a bit longer to recruit, but it means you can have a massive array of different things, which is cool. It gives you a really broad taste of the game playing as him, which I think why they did it for this demo. On the battlefield, he's also very good at just sort of ordering people by shouting at them. In this case, he can order his foes to attack him, which you'd think would be second nature, right?
Yeah.
But if you've got a unit of slingers taking pot shots at one of your lightly armoured units and then scampering away before you can retaliate, it can be very annoying. That is until you have ancient Greek Brendan Gleeson just bellow at them, ordering them to attack him, at which point they just run into him and snap like twigs on his enormous bronze shins. It's great.
It sounds great. So I know you enjoyed playing as Paris as well. And on an unrelated note, but related to the point I'm going to make in a second, you also enjoyed Sieges. But sadly, because of embargo restrictions, we're not able to show you that gameplay footage. So instead, if you want to know more about that, have a read of Nate's written preview on rockpapershotgun.com. You'll find a link to it in the description. One thing that I really hope that we can talk about is the art of flinging stuff from afar. So can we talk about chucking arrows and javelins?
Well, that you can do. That you can do quite a lot of, actually. I don't know if this is just an illusion, but it certainly felt like ranged weaponry was a bigger deal in Troy than it has been in other games. I think it's because there's such a massive infantry focus. It means there's a wider variety of everything. So you've got, javelins, you've got archers, you've got, Paris had these special archers who can fire as they move, which is quite good. You got slingers who whirl a pebble round in a bit of Kleenex and then brain someone with it. But they've all got great mobility and they seem to have a lot better range as well. I got quite frustrated in other games with having sort of send my archers constantly creeping around behind my infantry because they can only fire about 5 feet. But here they were, sitting back and really giving a hard time to the enemy light infantry. I've never much enjoyed range-based armies and TWs. That was good.
Still no regrets about the infantry focus thing?
I guess my problem with it isn't in terms of like the fun of playing, because they've managed a lot of diversity in your troop types, but it's actually being able to tell them apart, which I think is something that will come in time with experience with the game. But certainly coming to it from a standing start, they're all just variations on a theme of geezers with sharp sticks. Yeah, their little unit cards look a bit differently, but it's hard to remember which geezers with which sticks have got what abilities. It can be tempting to sort of, chuck them all in an amorphous mass, even though they've all got these really specific powers.
So you had the chance to get a look at Total War Saga Troy's campaign, and what I want to know, as I'm sure many others do, is does it feature a more stripped back type of campaign like Thrones of Britannia, which I know some fans of the series were a little bit upset with?
It's hard to say through only having played the sort of opening stages. I'm hesitant to give it too big a thumbs up in case sort of a few days of gameplay proves me wrong.
Of course, yeah.
But it doesn't feel stripped back to me. In fact, in some areas, the complexity is higher than it has been before. What I would identify there, and which you probably will have heard about in in some of the announcements for the game is the fact that Total War's single resource coins has been replaced by 5 resources. Coins plus food, wood, stone, and bronze. I didn't know how much difference that would make, but in practice the answer is loads. I love resource management. This ticked a real box for me that this series has never ticked before. Each of the cities on the map has got a resource focus, so when you level up its main building, it gets better at that type of resource gathering. And so that really adds a new element to your strategy. When you're thinking about, okay, where am I going to expand? Am I going to get involved in this war or not? Etc., etc. You're looking at the cities on the map and thinking, well, I am kind of short of bronze, and I could do that. It also gives you a whole new set of problems to consider. You might be doing really well in a lot of things, but if you're short on food, then you're in trouble. It's the simplest resource, but it's also what is spent to keep your armies running. So they have a maintenance cost in food, a bit like money in a standard Total War game. But it's really interesting. Do you solve that through doing royal decrees, which are mostly technologies, to reduce the upkeep on your soldiers? Do you seize more agricultural cities? Or do you do what I did when I was playing Menelaus and invest everything in stone production because you've got quarry cities, and then sell the stone to your allies for food? So I ran a massive dinner deficit for ages with him, but I just basically kept selling, was it Ajax? I don't know, some geezer. I kept selling him loads of rocks, and he kept feeding the lads. Chatting with people is a far more prominent component of this game than it has been in others. Because to trade with this stuff, and you will need to trade constantly, because you'll always have a shortage of something or a project you're working towards. Trade can only be accomplished through diplomacy. Other kings are always getting on the phone to try and do a bit of Alan Sugaring with you. I will say the AI is a bit busted on that at the moment. Ajax particularly, he was like one of those sort of Twitter grifters who constantly post links to their Ko-fi page. He was just showing up all the time when I was trying to do a war, just saying, do you want to give me a load of gold?
What, for nothing?
Yeah. I don't really fancy that, mate.
Yeah, you're going to have to give me something in return, I'm afraid.
One thing that was as weird as it was promising is one of the other Greek countries when I was Menelaus phoned up and just offered to give me a territory in exchange for one of mine. A lot of games have an option to include territory exchanges and transactions, but AIs will almost always expressly forbid it. So the fact it was willing to consider that was really, really promising.
We'll all find out if A Total War Saga Troy can deliver on its promises come the 13th of August. And remember, if you want more of Nate's thoughts on the game, just head over to rockpapershotgun.com. Thanks very much for chatting to me today, Nate.
Always a pleasure.
Do let us know if you're looking forward to A Total War Saga Troy in the comments section. And if you enjoyed this video, it would be lovely if you gave it a thumbs up too. If you're looking for some classic RPS flavoured content, you can have a look at either of the 2 videos on screen right now.
And if you're up to some classic epic Greek poetry, you can always read the Iliad.
And of course, if you want to make sure you never miss any of our videos in the future, just hit subscribe and ring that bell. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you again soon.